Hi, I'm Kate Fagan, and I'm a member of the client service team at ADVISA, your leadership consulting firm. At ADVISA, we work with companies big and small to help them collect data, really look at that data to provide some insight on how to better engage their employees and hire the right folks so they can take action to be some of the best organizations to work for. To set the stage, at ADVISA, everything that we do is based around this framework: data, insight, action. We collect data, behavioral, cognitive, emotional, engagement, and the list goes on, and then we provide insight on what that data is telling a company or business. And then we help organizations take action to specifically target trends, gaps, or lean into key strengths. Today, we're going to zoom in on the behavioral data that the Predictive Index gives us, but ADVISA is so much more. We truly love working side by side with organizations to improve the world one leader at a time. The Predictive Index is a behavioral instrument that helps folks understand how someone responds to their environment and the people in it. What is so important to note is that it predicts aspects of job performance that don't include someone's knowledge, previous experience, resume, moral code, or personal interests. Those can all be found out via the resume and interview process. We know that the Predictive Index works because there have been over 500 studies to prove its validity and reliability. With over 2.5 million surveys taken every single year, there's a huge body of data for this research. Also, when a person takes the survey, we can't tell their age, their sex, their religion, their socioeconomic status, which makes it EEOC compliant and can be used in the hiring process. This makes all of our friends out there in the HR world super happy. Let's start a place that we all have in common, the survey. Up on the screen, you'll see a list of words, not unlike the 86 words you saw on the PI survey. On the survey, you are asked to pick as many words that describe yourself. You then read the list, and your brain positively responded to those words, so you checked them. Or your brain read the list and you had a negative reaction to the words, "Oh no, that's not me," so you didn't check those. What you checked and what you didn't check are equally important. This is what behavioral scientists call a stimulus response survey. It's based on the fact that two people can read the exact same word and have different perceptions of that word. For example, the word that I pick up on the screen is efficient. I see myself as a super efficient person. A little bit about me is that I used to be a school teacher. One of my favorite days of the year was parent-teacher conferences. I was so jazzed to meet the parents of my students, learn more, and start building really strong relationships. I had my parents sign up for 15-minute blocks for those conferences. I ensured I started every single conference on time. However, during the meeting, I was often looking at my watch because I wanted to start on time and end on time. At exactly 15 minutes, I would stand up, walk them out, and start the next one right on time. I felt so great because I wasn't wasting anybody's time. However, many of my parents looked at those exact same actions, checking my watch, standing up right on the 15-minute marker, and looking at the door to see if the next parent was here, as harsh. Think about the word that you picked, and then think about how the same actions that drew you to that positive conclusion could be perceived by someone else very differently. The perception gap is when people observe the exact same set of concrete actions but perceive them in very different ways. The Predictive Index is a tool that can help us navigate this perception gap. The Predictive Index is based on the precept of why people behave the way that they do. All humans have drives. Those drives create very specific needs. Humans will then behave in ways to meet their needs. The PI measures folks on 4 drives, which create very specific needs in a person. We know that people will behave in ways to meet their needs. They tend to be predictable, which is why we call it the Predictive Index. However, what we can't do is look at someone's behaviors, start at the end of this flowchart, and assume we know what needs are driving those behaviors. There's a filter between what a person needs in their environment and why they behave the way that they do. So, what filters can affect behavior? A person is hardwired to have very specific needs, but might show up with different behaviors in their environment. Why? Well, they're adapting based on a number of different filters at play. A person's experiences, their intelligence, their education, their knowledge and skills, values, maturity, attitude, generation, culture, gender, self-awareness, parents, birth order, where they grew up. There are a ton of different filters that can affect how a person shows up. But even though these filters can affect behavior, if you really want to motivate and engage someone, you don't do that through their behaviors or actions, but instead by playing to their innate, deep down drives and needs. This is why we focus on the needs of a person as based on the 4 drives that PI measures. Before we jump into the person side of PI, I want to highlight the full system. The reason this is so important is that as we learn about what PI measures and you gain self-awareness about your own profile, it's critical to remember that businesses are often using this data in context to the job positions that employees perform. Likely, you've had a job that didn't feel like the best fit. Why is that? Oftentimes, it's because your motivating needs weren't met by the natural behaviors of the position, so you had to adapt. When a person's needs are not being met, they have to adapt. Adapting takes focus, energy, and effort, which can lead to burnout over time. We'll talk in depth today about the left part of this equation, what those sticks and dots say about a person's motivating needs and what type of environment they're looking to achieve. The most important thing to remember is that there's no good or bad PI. A person's profile is just that. However, on the other side of the equation, we support businesses in helping them objectively define what behaviors a specific job position requires. The PI system has a survey called the Job Assessment to help us uncover the natural behaviors of a job. In other words, the reality is that job positions have personalities too. They require a person to do or not to do certain things in order to perform the job well. Please note that it's rare to have a perfect fit to job. Think about it. We have all had aspects of our job that take energy from us to do and that we would avoid doing if given the choice. However, those things aren't our entire job, but it's good to note as an individual why certain requirements of your role are more de-energizing than others. Being aware of this is valuable all on its own. The PI is also a tool that companies use to develop people. When you think about your own professional development, the first place to start is with yourself. At the end of the day, you are the only person that you can control. Therefore, the PI helps us to build self-awareness, to know ourselves so that we can manage how we view situations. It also allows us to stop and think about how we engage with others. When we have a whole company working on this, then you can catapult the business results that everyone is trying to achieve. Many organizations and individuals spend all of their time and energy thinking about and trying to achieve business results. But you really have to start from within. Once you're aware of your own drives and motivators and how others might perceive you, especially if they're different, you can manage yourself, learn to engage better with others, and then get to the results/strategic plan for the organization. That's why our model is not based on a fancy 20-page report and paying per survey. We want you to survey the entire organization, get all of the data you possibly can on current employees and candidates, and then we build your internal knowledge about how to analyze and make smarter decisions based off of the tool. We transfer the knowledge to you. Now we're going to get really technical and talk about how to read the graphs. So you should have a piece of paper with 3 graphs in front of you: the self concept, and the synthesis. The self graph is where we're going to dive into today. This is your hardwiring, your DNA. This is who you are. This is what's been proven to be reliable and valid over time. The self concept is your perception of who you need to be in your environment. It's actually the answer to the first question on the survey. Because it's your perception of who you need to be in your environment and your environment changes, this one is time-stamped. It's only valid for 90 to 180 days. So you can put a little X by this graph because we will not be talking about it today. The third graph that you see is the synthesis. It's the combination of self and self-concept. because it includes self-concept, it is also time-stamped, so you can put a little X by that as well. We'll be zooming in on that self graph, which is where we want to spend all of our time today. So now we're going to dive into how do you read the self graph. Find that black triangle and draw a line up. This is the midpoint or the average expression of the 4 drives. Anything to the right is considered statistically high, and anything to the left is considered statistically low. It's super important to know that high is not good and low is not bad. High just tells us what you need in your environment, and low tells us what you're trying to avoid. If you look in that thermometer where it says M, the number there shows how many words you clicked. That is your norm group because your results are based on a bell curve. You'll also notice those black lines that go up, those are standard deviations. Any drive or any dot that falls within one standard deviation, either high or low, we will consider that you moderately feel that drive. 2 standard deviations, you very much feel that drive, all the way out to 3, which you feel that drive an extreme amount. However, some of you may notice that some dots can fall right on the midline. This means a person doesn't strongly feel the motivating need associated with that drive. They have an average amount. Therefore, their behavior isn't as predictable and it's more situational. Hopefully at this time you feel confident reading your graph and you know which drives are high, which drives are low, and which drives are more situational for you. Now we're going to dive into what A, B, C, and D mean. Now that we are oriented to how to read the graph, let's talk about what the dots or the drives stand for. A stands for dominance. It's the drive to exert one's influence on things or events. It's the need for impact. B stands for extroversion, the drive for social interaction with other people, the need for connection. C stands for patience, the drive for consistency and stability. It's the need for familiarity. And then D stands for formality, which is the drive to conform to rules and structures, the need for correctness. It's important to remember that these are the names of the drives. Think back to that flow chart from earlier. These are the 4 drives that PI measures, and each of these create very specific needs in a person, and people will then behave in ways to meet their needs. The A drive is the drive for dominance. It creates the motivating need to exert one's influence on things or events. It's the need for impact. When the A drive is high, it creates very specific needs for independence, challenge, and recognition for your own ideas. When the A is high, these folks want to change things. Therefore, high A folks tend to ask a lot of questions, take things apart so they can understand them, and then want to put their thumbprint on the solution. They inherently see things as broken, but that isn't a bad thing. If it's broken, then they can fix it and put part of themselves in the solution. These folks can be seen as independent and assertive, but they are just behaving in ways to meet their needs for impact. When the drive is low, it tells us what folks want to avoid. If low A's are looking for an environment that is encouraging, team-oriented, and collaborative, what are they trying to avoid? Conflict. Low A's tend to be great about picking up on conflict because they don't want it in their environment. Therefore, they fix it by diffusing or mediating the situation, or they'll leave. Staying in conflict isn't an option. The point at which high A's and low A's perceive conflict can be a point of tension when these folks are working together. Low A's can perceive conflict very early because it's painful to them. However, high A's might not perceive the situation in the same way. High A's and low A's may walk away from the same conversation with 2 very different perceptions of how that conversation went. The A drive, the drive for dominance, is the drive to exert one's influence on things or events. When it's high, these folks want to leave their thumbprint on a thing or event that they can impact. Therefore, you will tend to see determined behavior from them because they will take things apart to put their impact on it. However, when it's low, Low A's have the need to collaborate and include other people. So you will tend to see agreeable behavior from them because they want the entire group to get along. The B drive is the drive for extroversion. It creates the motivating need for social interaction with other people, the need for connection. When the B drive is high, it creates very specific needs for social interaction, recognition, and social acceptance. While high A's are trying to change things, high B's are trying to change people's feelings. We say they have a people radar that is always scanning. They are looking to connect and be viewed positively by those they care about. They can be seen as socially poised and outgoing. Low B's are trying to avoid communicating before they are ready. They have the need for introspection, time to close the door, and time to think. They can be more data focused, where high B's can be more feelings focused. Low B's can be seen as reserved and analytical. There can be a point of tension when low B's and high B's work together in how they think out information. High B's talk to think. When they are thinking, their mouth tends to be moving. Low B's tend to think before they talk. A great example of this is with a former coworker of mine. I'm a high B and would often ask him for his opinion on a topic. I would be talking and sharing my idea and using my people radar to get any kind of data on whether he liked my idea or not. However, because he was a low B, I would get a blank stare. Now, what was he doing? He was thinking. But what did it look like to me? It looked like he hated my idea because I wasn't getting any positive information. Therefore, I would start to change my idea just a little bit. But he would still be thinking about my first idea, and now I just changed it. Low B's tend to prefer communication to be transmissions of data, text or email. That way they have time to read, process, think, and then answer. High B's tend to like to talk things out face to face. High B's have the drive for social interaction with others, which creates the need that they need to talk things through. Therefore, you will see them behave in a very influential or persuasive manner so that they can connect with other folks. However, when the B drive is low, this creates very much a need to time to think through things to close that door. So people will behave in more private, introspective manner so that they can really have that process time. The C drive is the drive for patience. It creates the motivating need for consistency and stability, the need for familiarity. When the C drive is high, it creates very specific needs for familiarity with processes and people. When the C is high, these folks tend to create routines, rituals, and patterns. Therefore, high C folks can be seen as creatures of habit. They focus on what is right in front of them and prefer to sequentially order things. First, next, then, and last. They tend to be seen as patient and calm. Low C's are looking to create an environment that allows them to change their pace and have variety. They avoid repetition and routine. Therefore, you tend to see behaviors that can come across as restless, impatient, and a sense of urgency. There can be a point of tension with low C's and high C's when they work together in how they view interruptions. High C's have a motivating need to complete the process that they are working on. So if a high C is going through their checklist and they're interrupted, how much do you think they like that? Yeah, they don't. For a lot of high C's, it can be super frustrating. They have broken their focus and have to mentally arrange things again. However, low C's, since they're looking for variety, don't feel interruptions in the same way. They tend to be great at starting things, but might have a really hard time finishing them. An interruption is just them changing pace in their day. The C drive is the drive for consistency. And so when it's high, it creates a motivating need that these folks tend to be most comfortable when things are familiar. Therefore, they tend to have behaviors that are steady and composed because they're working through their process. However, when it's low, these folks tend to respond positively to pressure and they have that inherent need for variety. So you'll see behaviors that are intense because they have this tightly wound sense of urgency. The D drive is the drive for formality. It creates the motivating need for correctness. the need to know what perfect is. When the D drive is high, it creates very specific needs for certainty, freedom from risk, and knowing what right is. When the D is high, these folks are consistently seeking information to find out what right is. Therefore, high D folks tend to ask a lot of questions, do some research, and seek out information. They will sort things into two categories, perfect and anything less. We will often see high Ds be hard on themselves because how often are they reaching their bar of perfect? Yeah, not very often. They are always seeking to do and be better. They focus on the details. These folks can be seen as self-disciplined and attentive to details. Low Ds are looking for an environment that is free from rules. They have the freedom of expression and opportunity to delegate details. Low Ds tend to avoid the quote box, rigidity, and being controlled. They can be seen as flexible because they aren't tied down to one way. There could be a point of tension when low Ds and high Ds work together, and it's around the amount of information that they need. High Ds are consistently seeking information. We say that they have a 55-gallon barrel in front of them and they are trying to fill it with more and more information. This helps them get closer to their motivating need of knowing what perfect is. Low Ds, on the other hand, need about 3 bullet points of information or a thimbleful before they're able to move forward. The drive for formality, which is to conform to rules and structure, when it's high, creates the need for framework and structure. So therefore, high D folks tend to exhibit diligent behavior because they live in a very black and white world. On the other hand, low Ds don't have that same need for structure, and so they tend to have much more flexible and freewheeling behavior because their threshold for information is much lower. Hopefully you've gained a better understanding of your own PI, your motivating needs, and how those could be the same or different from folks that you work with. This will allow you to self-manage in different ways and hopefully engage with others in ways that are productive for both parties. If you have a whole company doing this, then you can accelerate reaching those business results that you all are trying to achieve. So as we wrap up our presentation, we really hope that you've learned something that's going to help you change how you engage with other people, to improve your leadership muscles so that you can be a better leader now and in the future. We just want to thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or your consultant. My email is on the screen, and as you know, we take a team approach at ADVISA, and we're all happy to help you.